All right, hey everybody, almost 10:40 right now, 10:39 on Wednesday. Good to see you. Thanks so much for checking in here. I'll try to do a quick overview of what we've got going on, and then we'll get into a little bit more of the fine details of what we expect with still Tropical Storm Nicole. It is almost a hurricane, but I feel like I've been saying that pretty much all morning long. Got several streams going here. That's why it took a little while to get things set up. So if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, give me a shout. Let me know what questions you might have, and I'll try to answer them just kind of in the whole flow of what we've got going on. But I'll try to keep this relatively brief, but if we go a little bit longer, a little bit of extra information for you, right? Okay, a couple of main takeaways that we've got here. This is really a very broad brush overview, but this is mainly for the Tampa Bay area. So if you're watching out of the Tampa Bay area, this may not necessarily apply to you, but it's fairly broad brushed enough to where I think it's going to apply to a lot of the people with the interests in Nicole around Tampa Bay, Central Florida, and even into portions of northwestern Florida up toward the Nature Coast and Panhandle. So rain, well, we've already seen a few showers roll through, but more of those bands and those tropical storm force winds arriving later on this afternoon into this evening. So that's when it all begins to go down later today. Rainfall with those bands. Now look, those bands and the rain becomes increasingly frequent to the point to where it's almost just a steady downpour at times through the overnight tonight into really the first half of the day tomorrow. But we're talking about rainfall totals potentially up to around 6 inches. Probably a good average for us around the area will be around 2 to 4 inches of rain. And this is all coming in a relatively short period of time. And it actually could come in an even shorter period of time if we get some training or rain bands kind of moving over the same area for an extended period of time. So that might result in some flash flooding. In addition to just the general widespread rainfall, heavy rainfall across the region, that will also likely produce some river flooding as well. So that's going to be something to watch out for as we go through Thursday and even into Friday for some of those streams, creeks, and rivers that could be dealing with a little bit of flooding. We'll really have to watch the surge situation on the backside of the system here as we make our way into Friday morning. So we're looking at the area as the storm kind of moves up through the time frame of between Thursday night and Friday morning as it starts to pull away from the bay. I'll show you this in a little bit more detail, but as those winds start to shift out of the west and then southwest, that will push some water up into the bay, but more so a concern for the Nature Coast. We could see some water levels increasing to around 3 to 5 feet above normal tide levels. So that's essentially what surge is. It's the storm blowing the water up onto places that normally don't see water, so above normally dry land is what we could see with that. Just a quick review of all the watches and warnings that we got out there. Tropical storm warning, right? If you're watching anywhere in the immediate Bay Area. Over on the East Coast, a hurricane warning is now in effect, but most of us here in Tampa Bay, most all of us in Tampa Bay, a tropical storm warning, and that's just so you can expect those tropical storm conditions to begin to arrive over the next 24 hours. Here's the latest. We just got this 10 o'clock advisory in from the Hurricane Center. No significant updates. Obviously, it's a little bit closer to us. Wind speeds are still at 70 miles per hour. They've been at 70 miles per hour since last night, so we haven't seen any real strengthening in that perspective. But it is just off of a hurricane, so 74 mile per hour winds would make it a hurricane, and those wind gusts are at hurricane strength at 85 miles per hour. It's moving to the west at 12 miles per hour, so it's moving due west, and then it'll start to turn to the northwest once it makes landfall late tonight into early tomorrow morning. There you see the rain, most of which is over on the East Coast, but obviously as Nicole continues to move west, and more of those showers will start to move into our area, and anywhere within those showers, especially closer to the center of the storm, that's where you're going to get the stronger wind gusts and ultimately start to potentially see some of the damage that may come from Nicole as it gets closer. Some of the current wind gusts around the area, you see Cocoa Beach reporting wind gusts at last check at 43 miles per hour. Sustained winds in Orlando around 15, 13 there in Lake Wales and Sebring. So your sustained winds are up there. I mean, it's breezy. It's a breezy day around the Bay Area. In fact, St. Pete has already recorded a wind gust today up 38 miles per hour. So with those winds coming in out of the north and east today, that wind just glides right across the bay. And Albert Whitted Airport is just sticking out right there. So as the wind glides across the bay, it's going to be pretty gusty in downtown St. Petersburg. Tampa's been pretty gusty as well, but obviously the strongest wind gusts that we've seen so far today are over on the East Coast. Cocoa Beach had a 44 mile per hour wind gust. Sebastian had a 40 mile per hour wind gust. So it's been pretty breezy. Palm Coast there 40. And obviously those wind gusts will likely just continue to rise. Here's the latest forecast cone. This is a new cone from the Hurricane Center. Not a significant change from what we had for you during Brightside this morning. That update came down at 4 o'clock in the morning. That was the last forecast cone update. There you see it becoming a hurricane later this afternoon. That's been the forecast for the last couple of days. And then as it moves up to the north, that's when we could start to see some surge in the area through Thursday afternoon, and then Thursday night, Friday morning, I think we peak with the greatest surge threat into the wee hours of Friday morning. The Futurecast model or the graph model has been very good so far with the general track. It was a little bit farther north. It's sort of self-corrected itself, but you see, we'll start to see more of those spotty showers become a little more frequent, and then those bands begin to arrive into the overnight hours. That band may be arriving at first, maybe the first strong band around midnight tonight. We'll have to watch the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. They typically close the bridge when sustained winds are around 40 miles per hour, but if you have frequent gusts that are exceeding 40 miles per hour, there may be more of an inclination for them to close the Sunshine Skyway Bridge tonight. So that will be something to watch. Even though you may not see the worst of the conditions until mid to late morning tomorrow, they may go ahead and preemptively close the bridge just out ahead of those deteriorating conditions through tomorrow morning. We're starting to get some reports of some closed schools around the region, including actually just got in Hillsborough County Schools is closed for tomorrow. So maybe not a typical morning commute tomorrow, but certainly still Skyway Bridge will be a concern, if not almost a certainty to close as Nicole moves through. Then we see, it's just a continuation of more and more rain bands, gusty conditions. It looks like the worst of it, like I said, probably through mid-morning tomorrow as the center of the storm moves right over I-4 through Polk County, maybe even a little bit farther south than what this model is showing. I think we very well could see a track more in some take something like this. So it could be very well moving right over downtown Tampa. Right now, that's kind of where the Hurricane Center's track is. The graph model takes a little bit farther north. I think there's been a trend for a more southerly track here recently. So we got to watch that and see how things evolve as it strengthens into a hurricane. Until it actually becomes a hurricane, there still is a fair amount of uncertainty. Just with a lack of confidence in the intensity forecast, that track forecast is going to be a little bit off too. But you see, even into Thursday afternoon, what we'll have to watch for, and I'll look at this closer with the forecast wind speeds, but you see how these wind streams are pushing all that water right up into our coast. So you've got water going to the bay, water being pushed up and almost funneled into the nature coast there. So that's why we do have that concern for some surge into Friday, early Friday morning, but more so Thursday night. Let me show you the forecast wind speeds here. We're looking at probably near tropical storm force wind gusts arriving in Tampa Bay as we make our way through tonight into early tomorrow morning. Notice St. Pete reporting wind gusts around 50 miles per hour. I shouldn't say reporting. This is a forecast wind gust of 50 miles per hour Thursday morning. And then we're looking at those wind gusts likely peaking for us around the area probably through mid-morning tomorrow, and then the storm moves up to the northwest, and then there you see those wind speeds or wind directions shifting to then push the water. But out ahead of the storm, so let's go right here, even a little bit before that, right about here. As we head through the evening hours tonight, that water is really going to be pushed out of the bay. We could have a reverse surge of 1 to 3 feet in Tampa Bay. In fact, I've had a couple of pictures, if you look at my Twitter page, a couple of people showing the water levels pretty low in the bay already. So that likely continues, though we're past low tide, heading towards high tide, and then the next low tide we could see even lower levels. Let's see, the next low tide for us today looks like it's going to be around 5:40 this evening. So look at later this evening for even lower levels of the bay later on this evening. Okay, so everything begins to then improve, certainly by Friday evening. Still a little breezy Friday afternoon. There still may be a little bit higher than normal water levels along the coast through Friday evening. But generally speaking, the weather will be improving for Friday. I'm a little concerned about some power outages. I don't think it's a huge threat. And the models have been, now lifting the storm back up to the north a little bit. You see there around 6 tomorrow morning, 6:30 tomorrow morning. It's taking the center of the storm a little bit farther to the north. If this stays farther to the south, just know that this whole area of potential power outages would be a little bit farther south down here into the Lakeland area, Polk County. So I do think there's a general threat for some power outages as Nicole moves through with some of those stronger wind gusts within those, especially those bands as they whip through and they bring some heavy rainfall, and that might help some of the trees come down, and ultimately it would be those branches, those limbs that fall into a power line and potentially pop the power. So that is a concern, something that I think we'll be watching. And I think some people maybe even have a little bit more impact than what they had with Ian, especially across the northern part of the area that we're a little bit farther away from Ian through the Nature Coast. So we got the wind, we've got the power outage impact, and then you have the rainfall impact. There's a flood watch in effect for Polk County. You've got Hardy, DeSoto, and Highlands County underneath this flood watch. Flood watch runs through tomorrow evening, but it could be extended even longer than that. This flood watch, let me show you here. Say tomorrow evening. Let's see. It's through Friday at 1 a.m. That's when the flood watch runs until, and that's really going to be for the water after it goes into the ground and starts to run off, and it goes into those rivers, streams, and creeks. So we're going to have to watch that situation for the potential for some flooding into the day on Friday. Real quick, rainfall totals anywhere between 2 to 4 inches, maybe some places picking up closer to 6 inches, 4 to 7, maybe out towards Placid Lake, Lake Okeechobee, in that area, Fort Pierce, and then down towards West Palm could be seeing a little bit more rainfall than that. And even up to the Nature Coast, we could see some rainfall totals that get close up to around 3 to 5, maybe 6 inches of rain. I mentioned the storm surge threat. This is new with the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center. They've upped the numbers for the Nature Coast with that potential surge of 3 to 5 feet with that 1 to 3 foot surge through Friday morning in Tampa Bay. So anywhere in those areas, just if you're along the water, just know that water's coming up. As the winds blow, as the storm departs, and that's what's going to be odd about this, as the storm's moving away, so the worst of the wind will really be gone, but still a pretty significant onshore wind will push that water up along the coast, and that will likely produce some water and some flooding in areas that don't typically see some water. So just a little closer look there. Really the line there between that 1 to 3 foot and that 3 to 5 foot is Tarpon Springs there on the border of Pinellas and Pasco counties. Just a breakdown of all the different threats that we've got here. It does look like the greatest threat time period is going to be through this evening into really the majority of the day tomorrow, but into tomorrow afternoon. And that's when things should begin to slowly calm down from like a wind and rain standpoint, but still a storm surge impact going through Thursday night into Friday morning. I know there's a lot to look at there, but that's generally what we're working with in terms of our threats. Wind, rain, you can probably lump wind and tornadoes into the same boat there. Not a huge threat for tornadoes per se, but anytime you get a landfalling tropical system, there's going to be the possibility of a quick spin-up tornado, which is something that we'll watch for, but more so over on the east coast of Florida. And then those winds, 55 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts could definitely bring down some limbs, branches, hopefully not trees, but soft soil, heavy rainfall, it could blow down a tree or two. So we got to watch for maybe some obstructed roadways that could cause some more significant delays in some spots into tomorrow morning. So that is, a very brief update, but I think it's fairly encompassing, and I think gives a good idea of what we're expecting as we make our way through the next 36 to 48 hours out there as Nicole moves through. I mean, look, this is not an Ian situation. We're not going to see the crazy storm surge damage or even wind damage like what we saw with Ian. And I do think there's this odd sense of complacency, or maybe a false sense of security, because people are like, oh, well, I survived Ian. I don't need to prepare. I don't need to be as ready for this storm. But I mean, whether it's a 120 mile per hour wind or a 60 mile per hour wind that takes out your power, the impact's the same, right? You're out of power. And now you're scrambling to figure out how you're going to charge your phone, or how you're going to communicate, how you're going to get updates. So you can't watch TV anymore. Are you watching on your phone, on a tablet, or something like that? So, like I said, no, we're not going to see those 120 mile per hour gusts, but we could see some 60 mile per hour gusts, and that could very well still cause some damage. Could still knock out some power. Maybe not quite on the scale and as widespread, but still, there's going to be that concern out there. So that's the thing that we're watching for. Watch out for some flooding. Be careful. I think there's going to be a lot more people trying to drive around in Nicole compared to what we had with people driving around in Ian. Certainly no evacuations at this point. So that's not a concern. But when you have people out on the roads, there's the inherent risk of just more accidents, more crashes, more people getting themselves into situations that they shouldn't be in. So, we say it ad nauseum sometimes, right? Turn around, don't drown. We're going to see some flooded roads. There's going to be some flooding out there. If you come across it, especially if it's dark outside, don't drive through it. Just don't. It's really not worth it. It's not worth the risk to you, your property, your vehicle. And if you get stuck, then now you're potentially putting somebody else at risk that may need to rescue you, when maybe they could be rescuing somebody else who really didn't have the option to turn around. Maybe they had a different situation that put them in a precarious spot where they're at a little bit more risk, but instead somebody's trying to rescue you, and you could have just gone around. So consider all those things. Simple little choices that you can make, things that you can do ahead of time to stay safe and to keep yourself safe, to keep yourself prepared, and just always one step ahead, right? That's the goal. If you're one step ahead of the storm, you're in a good spot. You don't want to be a step behind the storm and then the storm stepping on you. And then you've got yourself a situation, as they say. So anyway, that is it for me, guys. It is coming up on 11 o'clock. We've got 10 Tampa Bay midday, which is at noon. Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins is going to be popping in here relatively soon, and he's going to be with you through the entirety. He'll be here into early morning tomorrow morning, and I'm going to be coming back, and we'll be working around the clock to make sure that there's going to be someone from the 10 Tampa Bay weather team here keeping a close eye on things to make sure that you got the latest information. And whether it's here, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, or of course right here on air or on our streaming platforms, you've got the 10 Tampa Bay Plus channel that you can watch as well. So a lot of different ways to get information. And I'm sure you have even more ways to get information. And that's all that we ask. Just make sure you've got a way to get weather information so you can stay prepared. And as we like to say here, prepared, informed, and connected, right? If you've got all three of those things, then you're in good shape. So, and that's ultimately what we try to do, is to make sure that you're in good shape and you're aware of what's going on with the storm, and you've got what you need to come out on the other side. So that's it for me, guys. I'm going to let you go. Have a good rest of your day. Stay safe. And of course, as always, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us, and you can certainly hit me up on social media, and I'll try to get back to you and try to answer the question that you might have. So guys, take care. We'll get through this. I guess I could end on this note. The 7-day forecast before we everybody clicks off and says goodbye. The weekend looks great, doesn't it? Look at that. Sunny, highs at 80 on Saturday. Sunday, 73 degrees. It's going to be really nice out there this weekend. So something to look forward to, that light at the end of the tunnel, for sure. Anyway, guys, take care, and we'll talk to you soon.